This is Acid Phosphate, and today we're going to talk about why you need to use it in your drinks. I'm Darcy O'Neill, this is Art of Drink, and I'm the author of Fix the Pumps, The History of the American Soda Fountain. And the soda fountain has a long history, and one of the key ingredients at the soda fountain was acid phosphate. And phosphates were a whole class of drinks that have practically disappeared, but they don't have to. In fact, Coca-Cola was a phosphate when it was invented back in 1885. We know how that turned out. So let's take a look at what we can do with phosphates. The only reason phosphates stopped being popular was because of bottled soda and today canned soda. Once vending machines came out where you could just put a quarter or a dime or a nickel in and get a pop out, it was no longer beneficial for pharmacists to run a soda counter. And in fact, by the 1950s, medicine became more important. And back in the 1800s, you could treat everything with cocaine, heroin, and snake oil. But once modern medicine came along, it became a far more serious business, and the soda fountain turned into a vending machine. So acid phosphate was no longer required because they just premix it in the bottles. And we lost acid phosphate. Now the problem is there are hundreds, if not thousands, of old phosphate recipes and old soda fountain manuals that have kind of disappeared. But some of them are quite interesting, a lot of them are amazing, and with this kind of modern trend towards more non-alcoholic beverages or low-alcoholic beverages, the idea of using old soda fountain methods to make these drinks is not a bad idea. Now, if you want more information on the history of the soda fountain, you can go to Art of Drink, the website. I'll put a link down below. And you can download a free copy of Fix the Pumps. It will give you a concise history of what the soda fountain was like in the 1800s. A standard phosphate's quite easy to make. You basically serve it what's called still or flat. Put the phosphate into the glass first, and then you'll add your soda water. You just want to leave enough room at the top for an ounce without overfilling it. You take an ounce of your phosphate or your syrup to add to your phosphate, and you pour it in. In this way, what happens is, the reason you do it this way is that it doesn't foam up. And so one of the things with a phosphate was that you never have ice in it, and you never serve it with head or foam on top. So this is the proper way to serve a phosphate. So why were phosphates so popular? There's a number of reasons. One of them is that acid phosphate's just kind of a pure sour flavor. And if you mix the lemons and limes with any drink, they always have that citrus fruit taint that, everything tastes like a lemon or lime, or at least has hints of it. Acid phosphate's just pure sour, and it's got some flavor enhancing salts in it, so that helps. Historically, it was hard to get lemons and limes in the middle of winter up into places like Minnesota. In major centers like New York, it wasn't necessarily hard, but back in the 1800s, refrigeration hadn't been invented yet. So, the quality of your fruit could be suspect depending on, the season. Acid phosphate didn't have those issues, and it was shelf stable for years. It doesn't have any fermentable sugars in it, or any fermentable products at all. So it can literally probably stay on your shelf for 10 years and not be affected. So it was a good investment for pharmacists before refrigeration and other preservation methods. Back in the day, so the 1800s, there were a lot of health claims that you'd find in the old marketing material for acid phosphate and every other product out there. In fact, acid phosphate was originally made as a tonic, but it found better use as an acidifying agent at the pharmacies. And some of the marketing material actually said that lemons would cause derangement of the bowels. Now, not to besmirch lemon's good name, but derangement of the bowels seems unpleasant. And finally, physicians would often give testimonials about the benefit of the product. So whether it cured dyspepsia or lassitude or, sunstroke and even seasickness is often claimed to be, remedied by acid phosphate. Now, I know that's true today, but back then that was the equivalent to people doing likes and subscribes on YouTube videos. Hint, hint, wink, wink, you know what to do. So what exactly is acid phosphate? Well, it's a combination of calcium, magnesium, and potassium phosphate salts and a slight excess of phosphoric acid. Now, this in chemistry terms is a buffer. So a buffer is just an acidic solution that will resist changing pH even when the volume of the drink increases. Now, this is beneficial because you use a smaller amount of acid phosphate and still get a good sour flavor in your drink. Now it has a pH of about 1.8 to 2, which is basically the same as fresh squeezed lime juice, but you need to use less of it. So where you'd normally use half a lime, which would be like a tablespoon of lime juice, you'd only need half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of acid phosphate. The acidity comes from the phosphoric acid, but there is a flavor enhancing experience with this. Most people call it a tingle or a sparkle, or it adds a sparkle to the drink when you try it. It's hard to describe unless you try one, but it's there. It definitely gives an enhanced flavor. And that's probably from the salts because even though they're calcium, magnesium, and potassium, much like sodium chloride or table salt, any salts tend to enhance flavor. So it does do a good job of acidifying a drink, but you might also get a little bit of flavor enhancement in it as well. Now, some people believe it's just phosphoric acid, and that's not the case. I don't recommend using pure phosphoric acid behind the bar, even if it's slightly diluted. It's just too strong to put in drinks, and though it probably can be used safely most of the time, it only takes a couple mistakes to burn somebody or get it on the rim of the glass and then have the patron actually touch it to their lip and it may burn their lip. Or you can splash it in your eyes, and that's kind of the worst case scenario. If you get concentrated or even dilute phosphoric acid in your eyes, it's a problem. Again, this has a pH of 1.8 to 2, kind of the same as lime juice, so it'll be irritating, but it won't cause the significant damage that pure phosphoric acid would do. So be safe. Don't mess around with people's health. Hot drinks were a thing at soda fountains, especially in the winter, and this is a hot claret phosphate. Now, the key ingredient is a claret syrup, and I make mine with 1 cup of red wine and 1 cup of sugar. All you need to do is mix them together and shake until the sugar dissolves. You don't need to add any heat, and that will help keep the freshness of the wine when you make this drink. So it's quite sweet, but that's where acid phosphate comes in. So to make the drink, you're gonna need about a teaspoon of acid phosphate, so 10 to 12 dashes. And that should be enough to balance out all of the sweetness of this drink. And then what you need to do is add an ounce of your claret syrup. And then simply add hot water. And that is the hot claret phosphate. So I hope this piqued your interest in acid phosphate and the class of drinks called phosphates. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of old recipes for phosphates. And there's a lot of creativity in them. And it's something I'm going to deal with more in the future, is putting out more videos talking about how to make different phosphates, because there is a trend for lower alcohol drinks, and taking the practice from the soda fountains and what they did to make creative drinks without alcohol is something we should be tapping into. Now, if you're looking for acid phosphate, you can find it online at Kegworks or Boston Shaker, Prairie Moon, and I sell it on Art of Drink. So If you're curious enough and you want to try some, order a bottle and see what you can do. And if you have any questions about the product or any of that you've seen in this video, please feel free to leave a comment below and I will get back to you. So thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.